Hey, welcome again today to this edition of Mobility Monday. I'm Jeff Blanchard, physical therapist with Therapeutic Associates. And today we're going to be talking a little bit more about the topic that I talked to you last time about, which was weak butt syndrome. We're going to get a little bit more into that actually because it is such a common thing that we see a lot here in the clinic as patients come and go with different issues. We're going to talk a little bit more about knee pain and how having an inadequate gluteal strength can lead to some chronic knee problems, which can affect anybody from an older individual all the way down to someone in their teens. So let's get started. All right, so I grabbed my knee model this time because I wanted to teach you a little bit more about the anatomy. The last few times we looked at the hip and how it's a really big ball and socket joint and how much stability the hip has in it and how much muscle. So the knee is built differently in that it's more of a hinge joint instead of a ball and socket joint. So the knee primarily moves in this motion. So it will bend this direction and it'll straighten this direction. There's none of that twisting and turning. There is a little bit of play in the rotation that the knee is supposed to do, which is actually a good thing, but it's not supposed to do very much. And that's actually where the problem is. Because if the hip is not properly controlled, which is up here, then this bone, which is the femur, is not properly controlled. And if the femur is not controlled well enough, then it twists underneath the kneecap or the patella. Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to zoom in on this or not, but we've got the femur here. This is looking down to the foot. The foot is sitting here at my chest. And you're looking right at the kneecap. And the kneecap sits right on top in the center of the femur. That's where it's supposed to sit. And that relationship should stay fairly lined up. But if the femur is moving too much underneath the patella or the kneecap, then there's too much of this going on, which is going to cause a lot of knee pain right underneath the kneecap. So how many of you notice when you go up the stairs, you get some crunchy, crunchy, crunchy noises, okay? So that is because that cartilage is getting a little bit more bumpy, and that bumpiness of the cartilage causes that noise. And the bumpiness, oftentimes, more of that is caused by more of that rotational force that changes the cartilage over time. So what do we want to do? We want to have better control up top. We want to have more strength in and around the hip, and so that controls the knee from doing too much of this side-to-side motion because it's supposed to be doing more of this motion. So our hips should be able to rotate and twist. That's okay because it's a ball and socket joint. The knees should have a little bit, and that's okay, but we don't want to do too much, and especially with a lot of force through the body if you're on one leg. So I'll give you two demonstrations of how the hip influences the knee and how you can work on this at home. So we're first going to start off with an exercise using the chair. We're going to be talking about sitting and proper sitting. So again, as we've talked about before, the muscles of the hip control the femur and with sitting, and that helps you maintain your alignment through the hip. So I'm going to first show you how what the wrong way is to do this and what I see a lot because of hip weakness, and then I'll show you how to correct that and make it the right way. So here's the wrong way to sit. Watch my knees. You noticed as I sat, my knees came together. And as I stand back up, my knees coming together as on my way back up. Okay, that is a problem. Over time, that will break the knees down. So, and what is happening is there's a disconnect between your brain and the muscles of your hips. And so the muscles of your hips aren't working when you do that. So you need to use the muscles of your hips to keep your knees in the proper position. So this is the right way to do this. Okay, sitting and standing. Keep your knees with some space in between them. Now, a really good way to do this at home is to take a band and tie it in a loop. Put it around your legs, and so it's here and it's pulling your knees together. What that does is it wakes that part of your brain up that turns those muscles on that pushes the knees apart, and then you have something to fight against as you're coming up and you're coming back down again. So that's a nice little trick. take your stretchy band, tie it in a loop about as big as a small dinner plate, put it around those knees, and then try practicing this exercise with that band on there to help keep those knees apart. So that will start to wake those muscles up that are in the hips. I'll show you one other example. Okay, so here's another example where how the hip can better control the knee to keep the knee in a good position. This is something that we look at in our patients a lot. This is a test that we have them do to see how well they're incorporating the muscles of their hip. What I want to have you do is I want you to watch my knee, and again, I'm going to show you the wrong way, which is a very common thing to see with stairs, and then I'll show you the right way to do this. So first, the wrong way. When people step up on the step, their knee swings in this direction, and they step up like that, and then when they step back, it does this. Or even worse, if I'm going to go off the front of the step and go down the stairs, this is what they do when they go down the stairs. And as you can see, my knee is diving in towards my other leg as I do that motion, which is the same thing that you saw when I was doing the sit in the chair. This exercise is a harder exercise because all your body weight is on one leg. The sit to stand exercise is a much easier exercise. I would suggest you start off with that one first and get really good at that one before you try doing something on one leg. Because here, you got to have good balance and you have to have a really good strength in this hip to keep the knee right over the foot. So what I suggest you do is you think about your kneecap being in line with your second toe. Now, if my kneecap is in line with my second toe, I've got things lined up right when I showed you that knee joint. If it goes to the inside of my big toe, then I'm going the wrong direction. Now I'm going to be having some knee problems and potentially maybe even a foot issue. Okay, so I'm going to show you the correct way to do this. That's this. Okay, so keeping that knee over my second toe. I have to really use this muscle here in the side of my hip in order to keep my knee tracking right over my second toe. If I'm going to go down the stairs, right over my second toe. Okay, my foot's not pointing out this direction and my knee coming to the inside. That's the wrong way to do this. That'll irritate the knee. All right, so, or my knee doesn't swing this way. It's just going to go right over my second toe. So try to maintain things in alignment as you're doing those stairs. That'll help to really keep that muscle on. All right, so I have my TheraBand on right now, and I have it around my ankles. So again, about the size of a small dinner plate is about the size you'd want to have it. I would have it around my knees if I was doing that squat exercise in the chair like I demonstrated before. Now I have the band around my ankles because I'm going to show you one other exercise that's going to help keep these muscles stronger to help you be able to sit properly and go up and down the stairs properly. And this is just a simple side-to-side band walk. So a good place to do this would be in a large room or down a hallway or something like that. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to get your knees slightly bent and you're going to do little steps to the side here, and then you're going to go the other way and do little steps to the side. If you have a nice long hallway, then you can go a lot further along than I'm showing you right now, but because I'm trying to stay in your field of vision, I'm not going quite as far each direction. You want to make sure you always keep your feet apart, and so you're never getting slack on the band. If your feet come too close together, well, now there's no tension, and so this makes things too easy. So you want to have space between your feet, and you always want to keep that space between your feet as you're going along. And so you keep these muscles here in your hips, you're keeping them on and working. The last thing with this exercise you want to try to do, I usually suggest that my patients pretend like they have a book on the head. So if you've ever tried balancing a book on your head, you don't want to be doing like this as you're going along, because what that does is it steals all the work out of these muscles, which is what you're trying to build. You're trying to build the strength in those muscles. So pretend like there's that book on your head, keep yourself centered, and then just side to side steps, side to side steps. Thanks for joining me again for today's Mobility Monday. If you know somebody who's having some knee issues and you notice that their knees are coming together when they're sitting, you can bring this up and say, hey, I learned something on Mobility Monday, and I know how you can fix this to keep your knees doing better. So subscribe to our page, share the page with somebody else, and remember, until next time, motion is lotion.